Coming up on today's show.
Really, it's about decreasing waste and increasing flow, and this is all part of lean daily management.
I like the tip of using a verb because it is action-oriented.
First thing is just to get it all into one place, so it's all together. And then you go through and you just sort it into piles of like things.
Creating good organizing habits with the 5S organizational system today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. We want to try to help you develop some good organizing habits. And to do that, we've got a special system. It's called the 5S organizational system. And here to tell us about it is Veronica Bishop from Organizers Northwest out in it's the Seattle area. Is that correct? Or Portland?
Portland.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I sometimes merge those two together, even though they're miles and miles apart.
But, be careful now.
I know. It's out there in the Northwest. At least I got that part right?
That's right.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the 5S organizational system and what is that, who created it, and maybe you can give us a little backstory on that, and then we want to get into how we can actually develop good habits from that.
Sure, John. Well, the 5S system was created by the Japanese in post-World War II Japan, and it was created initially for manufacturing companies to decrease waste on their floor. So really, it's about decreasing waste and increasing flow, and this is all part of lean daily management, which is a systematic methodology that's again focused on eliminating waste. And so it's being used in many manufacturing companies and also in healthcare. And we apply it in our offices. We apply it with our clients and in their offices, and specifically with paper.
Now, isn't part of that too, from what I understand, it's like an iterative process where you kind of do little steps, and it kind of gets better?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the steps to 5S are sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And so when all those steps are put together in a way that makes sense, then people are able to apply the changes to their space really well. So that's how we do it.
Okay, well, let's dig into them. Let's go one by one. We'll go through each S, and I think also really apply it to the organizing business, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people get organized and stay organized. So what is the first S again?
Well, the first S is sort, and sorting is really about going through and putting things into like categories. So I'll give you an example to make it a little bit easier. If you're using 5S for paper, you would gather all of your paper together. First thing is just to get it all into one place, so it's all together. And then you go through and you just sort it into piles of like things. So things to pay, to do, to read, and to file, things like that. And then all you're doing is separating those things out. So that's the first step.
Well, how do you come up with the categories or the piles, or do you have like a standard set of ones that you use, or is it different for each person? And should you maximize out at maybe 5, or how do you come up with the categories?
Well, the categories are really specific to the project. So, for example, we just did a big job for a local manufacturing company, and we were in their tool parts room. So in that situation, we had thousands of different tool parts, and we were putting them into different categories, and so that was very specific to that job. If you were using this system to organize your pantry, you might do, soups and canned goods, dry goods, or pasta and rice. It's how you think and how you cook. So it really just depends on you. But if you're doing this with another person, I recommend having some sticky notes and a Sharpie, and you just label each of those piles so that everybody knows what's going on. Because if you have multiple people sorting together, that helps to put everyone on the same page.
Well, is there too many piles? Like, is 10 too many, or do you just kind of have to go with the flow and say, I think this is the right number?
Well, at this point, all you're doing is
Okay.
sorting, and what it'll look like in my experience is that it's a big mess because there are piles everywhere, and we say it always gets worse before it gets better. So that's what you're seeing, and it's fine to have as many categories as you need, because ultimately during the set in order step, everything's going to get put back. Um, and I'll talk about
Okay.
that in a sec.
Well,
But
let's go back.
during the sort phase, it's a
Well,
mess.
let's go back to your example of the tool company. How many different piles did they have, and how long did it take you to kind of get that first step completed?
Well, that space was a small space, so we ended up having to move things out onto pallets and have them forklifted to another location because we didn't have enough space to have everything in their respective piles. And it took about I think 2 or 3 days to go through all of that. But there were things that were, 35 years old in there. So,
Wow.
it can take time depending on how big the project is. And that would be what we would call a kamikaze 5S, which is that every scrap comes out of the space. And that's really what you're doing with sorting is you're taking everything out of the space. So, going back to the example of the pantry, if you were doing the pantry, ideally everything would come out and it would be in another location while you're sorting through it so that you can get in there and clean while it's
Yeah, I
empty.
was just going to ask you that. So, kind of once you got everything out, it's a good opportunity to kind of clean out and get rid of all the dust or whatever it is. So when you go back in, you're at least clean and ready to go. So, anything else with
Exactly.
this sort step of the 5S process that we need to think about or be concerned about?
Well, the main thing is that you don't want to get ahead of yourself, and I call that sort remorse when you start organizing things and really putting a lot of thought into it, and then you end up throwing it all away anyway. So really, all you're doing is sorting through and putting things into like piles, and you're making decisions about what's not adding value. So expired food would go. If you were doing paper, that would be any papers that you could find online that you don't need to keep a copy of or you have it in the cloud. Those can get shredded or tossed. So getting rid of the waste. This is the step where we are eliminating things that we don't need anymore. And then the things that we're keeping go into those
Okay,
piles.
great. So we got S number one, which is sort. Let's move
Yeah.
on to number two. What is the next S in the 5S system?
The second S is set in order, and that S just relates to then putting everything back. And I think personally, I like to do the third step next, and I sort of change the order a little bit, which is shine. And shine is all about cleaning and inspecting for future problems and anticipating them, seeing them before they happen. So if you were doing an office, that would be, cleaning out your computer, the fan in your computer, getting the dust out of there, cleaning out the inside of the file cabinets while they're empty, um, you know, checking for light bulbs that are burnt out. It's not just cleaning; it's really seeing the whole space, which is really helpful to do when it's empty. So some people would set in order next, but I would clean first and then set in order. And to answer your question, set in order is about making decisions about where things get to live. And I say get to live because, they've passed the test of through the sort phase of getting to stay, and you've decided that they are adding value. And so then that part is all about really deciding what you're touching the most, what you're getting into the most, and placing those things in a place that is really functional and makes sense so you can get to
Would
them
that be like
easily.
prioritizing maybe some things that you use more often in a close file drawer, let's say, versus I need to keep this thing, but it can be archived in a file cabinet in another room? Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay.
Exactly, exactly. And I would say, there are certain areas in an office or in any space that we would call prime real estate. And that is a place that is really easy to get to. Maybe it's on your desktop. Maybe it's a file drawer that you don't even have to bend or move to open, or a shelf that's right at your fingertips. And that's the prime real estate. So when we're putting things back, we're being very thoughtful about what deserves to live where. and it's very
Okay, I'm going to take a
intentional.
little curveball here because I'm thinking about the person that has the desk where they have 7 or 8 or 9 files. Are you a proponent of like one thing at a time on your desk, or even like desktop organizing? You know, there's a lot of things out there that allow you to keep maybe 10 files in a little box of your most urgent stuff. What is your philosophy on desktop organizing?
That's a good question. Well, we follow the David Allen in his Getting Things Done book. He talks about you trim the fat with paper. So fat is file, act, toss, and that means you can only do one of those things with your paper. You can either file it, act on it, and toss it. So for desktop organizing, personally, I try to have the only things that are on my desktop are the act portion of that. Things that need something to happen with them, whether that's a current project or I have my desktop file right here. It's I don't know if you can see
Yep.
it, but to pay and to do, and those are my 2 action things that are on my desk, to pay and to do, because that's just, for me, that's what I need. And for action files, we say that you should use a verb, to scan, to file, and it can be to file, that's okay. But the idea is that because it's an action file, you're getting through it every day, you're looking through it, it's constantly in use. And then once there's no action required on that paper, it would then go into a file that would be in a more long-term storage, or a file for
Oh, I think
reference
that's a
file.
great thing. I like the tip of using a verb because it is action oriented. So we're going to take a quick break, and
Right.
when we come back, now we've kind of covered 2.5 of the 5, but we'll circle back and make sure we have number 2 finished and before we go to number 3. But we'll do that when we come back. We're with Veronica Bishop with Organizers Northwest talking about the 5S organizational system, and we'll be right back. Are you looking to get your office organized but don't know where to start? And what can you really do to keep your office organized? Smead has put together a new ebook to help you answer these exact questions. We've compiled the best tips from professional organizers around the country to help you tackle the most common office organizing challenges. Go to smead.com/office organization and get your free copy today. That's smead.com/office organization. The new organization for the office ebook from Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized, helping you to get some good organizing habits by implementing the 5S organizational system. We're joined by Veronica Bishop, Organizers Northwest. And Veronica, before the break, kind of made it through 2 of the steps, I think, but we kind of touched on 3. Let's just regroup. Maybe you can recap number 1 again real quickly, and then let's move on to number 3 if we've covered number 2.
Sure. Well, the first S was sort, so we're eliminating waste, getting rid of things that we're not using, throwing away expired foods or paper that we already have created our action on, whatever it is, and that's going away, and then we're just sorting things into like items. The second step is set in order, where we put things back according to where they deserve to live based on how often we're touching them, how often we're using them. I'm not going to put a file or something that I need regularly far away where I have to constantly walk into another room to get it, and that's pretty basic. But when you get into a larger space like a kitchen or a garage, we just want to think about how many steps we're taking to get to that thing. If we're doing it every day, it becomes tedious. So setting in order, just being very purposeful and really creating visual order that we can really see, and the things that we're using often are close to us. And then the third S is shine, and you can either do this, while the space is empty, or you can do it after you put things back, and that's all about
Okay, yeah,
cleaning
we
and
didn't really
inspecting.
touch a ton on the inspecting part. You want to just elaborate a little bit more on that part of
Yeah,
the shine?
sure. Well, So the cleaning part is obvious, dusting and getting really in those spaces where usually, for example, in a file drawer, it gets dusty down there. Once all the files are out, it's a good time to clean it out. But the inspection portion of it is about anticipating possible problems before they occur. So in an office, that might mean, you know, cleaning off some part of your computer where the fan is. I mentioned that. Also, you can unscrew your keyboard from the bottom and pull the keyboard, the face off, and you'll be shocked at what you see. There's always, dust and crumbs and other junk in there, and so you're anticipating before the keyboard or the computer breaks down. You're doing that inspection as part of the 5S process so that you can eliminate
Now, it
those
seems
things
to me
before
after
they
these
happen.
3S's, we're all ready to go, but there's still 2 more to go, so I'm excited to find out about number 4.
Well, I love your enthusiasm.
I'm supposed to be enthusiastic, aren't I?
Yeah. So really the first 3 S's are just basic organizing, basic organizing action. So, sorting, cleaning, putting things back. That's what we all do when we're organizing. So the thing that makes 5S different, in my opinion, is the last 2 S's. The 4th S is standardize. And the standardized piece is really important, particularly if there are multiple users in a space. And I've done this in many different situations, both residential and office, where there are 3, 4, 5 multiple people coming in, and people, when there's not a communication system in place or a visual order, people just put things wherever they can, so it doesn't last. So you spend all this time doing the organizing job, but then it doesn't hold up because we haven't standardized. So standardization is all about labels, but in specific to manufacturing and healthcare, lines painted on the floor, really obvious signs, color coding, things like that to alert, in that situation, to alert for danger or to give instruction. In an office, it could be, a system for doing client files so that anyone could come in and find the file really easily. And the standardized portion of it should really be specific to your particular space, and it's geared very in a customized way
Now,
toward the users
document this
who are
like in a
there.
style guide or organizational guide or some like one sheet of paper where if you forget what the system is, you can kind of go back and look at it, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, we've done that before. We've done a map of the space that shows kind of where things are if it's a larger office. And a new person comes in, they can learn it really quickly. I'll give you an example. For files, I've seen a lot of people, they get really excited about organizing products, and they want to go out and buy all this crazy stuff before they do the work. And I'm not saying, I love a good filing system that's fun and funky, but you got to do the work first. And so it needs to really represent the system that you're trying to put into place. I personally like the plain manila files because they're easy to replace, and then within that you can do a system with stickers or color, but that way you don't have to go and buy the exact same file in order to keep it going. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it's, sometimes we get overwhelmed by just all the tools and stuff, and they don't need to be that complicated. So, all right, well, let's move on to number 5. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you there.
I was just going to say I love the tools as much as the next person, but do the work first, and then you get the appropriate tools for the job.
Right. Okay. We're getting short on time, so let's get into our final S of the 5S system.
Okay. Well, the final S is about sustaining the work. The 5S, the 5th S is sustain, And that's about keeping it going. So we recommend a 5S, what we call a 5-minute 5S, which is just a quick checklist that you do at the end of the day. You go through your checklist and you do kind of a mini 5S to keep the work going. And also the sustain part refers to communication between users in the space and training people on keeping it up.
Do you think that's the hardest part of the system, is the maintenance or the sustaining it?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the hardest part by far. And so what we say is that it really needs to be part of the culture of your office. And even if you're the only one in your office and it's just your own personal culture, that relates to your habits, and that's the part that kind of needs to shift in order for it to continue. And in a big office, that would be, the office place culture is that everyone is bought into this idea of keeping the work going, and everyone is invested.
Yeah, well, this has been a great set of a great system. Really, that's what it is. If you implement all 5 of the S's, and for those that forgot, they'll be in our show notes. But before we go, I do want to talk a little bit about organizersnw.com and the Organizers Northwest. Tell us a little bit about the services you guys provide. Is it local, national? How do you handle it? Home, businesses?
Well, we're local in Portland, Oregon. And we do both residential organizing and also office and bigger 5S projects. So on the residential side, as I mentioned, that could be a garage clean out, a pantry, a kitchen, or a playroom, and then the paper and the office organizing is that sort of systematic approach. We use 5S to do that, and that's kind of those are our 2 areas of expertise, I would say.
And you also happen to write the blog there as well at organizersnw.com. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. I've been writing the blog for the last year and a half or so, and I have a lot of fun with it. And we always I include tips and suggestions for organizing systems. And the last one I published was just a little bit of a rant. So it can be whatever.
All right, now
fun.
This is a family show. We don't want to get you going on that, but
it's a kind rant.
Okay, good. And so again, the website, is that the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yes, the website.
Organizersnw.com. Well, great. It's been an action-packed show here today, and again, people can check out the show notes if they missed a little bit here or there. But Veronica, I'm sure we'll have you back on again, and it's been a pleasure today, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Great. Talk to you soon, John.
All right. So now you have the 5S organizational system. Make it a habit now, and you will become a much more organized person. We'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized. Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
We're all already stressed, we don't have enough time, and we tend not to take care of ourselves. And then suddenly, even if it's for the most wonderful reasons, like we just got married or we got a new job and we moved to a new city, even good things can be added stressors in our life.